Good morning, and today's going to be Queen Jack of Clubs. In the same, we have an early position player limps. I ISO. We get two callers, and it gets back to the limper who calls. Let's take a look at this. Limper's playing 52% over 27 hands. Early position, he's played 60%, 3 out of 5. I'm guessing this guy's pretty wide. Doesn't look like he's really raising first in at all. It's 0 out of 12. He's been limping basically everything, 7 out of 12, or potentially calling. So I put together a range. It looks something like this. Early position limp. It's a lot of hands. It's about 30%. I think the 60%, it's 3 out of 5. He could have gotten some decent hands. When we look at some of his notes, we've got a 3-bet range of jacks. Called 3 bets in position with ace queen suited. Limp and called raised, king 10, 9, 8. So king 10 off, 9, 8 suited. So I think we're looking at something like this. I think when he calls, maybe he narrows it down. We already have a couple callers here. I think he's probably going to call hands like in our Broadway, and then like maybe some like straight and some flush potential. So I'm just going to narrow him to do something like this, maybe even at 9-8. I did have jacks plus ace queen as this raising range. I think that kind of makes sense if he's going to be 3-betting with jacks. 3-bet with jacks, call 3 bets in position ace 8. I think that kind of makes sense. All right, so now with us, we're looking at an ISO raise. In early position, we've got the optional and we have the always. Definitely Queen Jack is in one of those optional ranges. I did raise here. Raise it up to 5, so we're going to go with that range. And then we get 2 callers. Now, this guy's probably going to be the tightest of the group. He's playing 9-7 over 100 hands. We do have one note that he raises first in with queens and then triple barreled 75% on low boards. Overall, it's 10 out of 111 hands. That's what he's played. So you can see just across the board, it's going to be under 10% of hands is what he's played. He's called, again, right around 10% or so. So that's kind of our target. And I think that looks something like this. Pocket pair, some Broadway, maybe some suited connectors. I did put ace king in here. I weighted that at 50% because I kind of think sometimes people will raise ace king, sometimes they don't. And for a type player like this, definitely you can kind of mix it up between raising and calling, especially in like a cutoff position. The next player I think is going to be somewhat of similar. He's playing 32-16, definitely wider, but we only have a couple hands. That's it. We've got 19 hands. We really can't judge much from him. We do have called 2-bet from blind 5s, 9s, ace queen. So I'm going to say, I mean, just based on that, that would be something like this in early position. So pocket pair, some Broadways, suited connectors, and that's about it. And it gets us back down to like 10%. So both players are going to be fairly tight. This player is going to be loosest by far. All right, so we see a flop of 7-3-2, 2 clubs. So pretty dry board. Let's check to us. What do we do? Again, I like to do is check out how many draws do we have, and you can see, yeah, we could have flush draw, but the reality is that's probably all we have. We'll have overcards. We're not going to have a whole lot of like straights, ace 4, ace 5, just based on how we played. So I think because of this, and since we are a 4-way, we're going to be a bit straightforward with our play. And you can see that our flush draw is only 10%. So our pre-flop or our c-betting range should be about 10%. I think that's kind of like aces and kings maybe. And that's going to make it way over the top. Aces brings us, so sets with aces brings us up to like 7.7. I think we would probably do all of these as a bet. Jacks plus. I think 8s, 9s, 10s could likely be like a check. Kind of be in a tough spot. We bet and somebody raises us, we're gonna be calling, and then if there's like an overcard, a Broadway come out, it's gonna be hard for us to call. Probably would have to call a second time, and maybe even on the river just to call. Obviously, I don't blame anyone for betting. Perhaps that would be proper play. We don't really have any other hands, so like when we look at two card backdoor flush draws, I mean that this is kind of what we're looking at. I mean, we could do all 2-card backdoor flush draws, and we're still only at 20%, which means we still have to generate some other bluff cards. So maybe that's where the 8s, 9s, and 10s come in. Kind of as a bluff. That brings us up to 60%, and maybe that's gonna be the appropriate mix. It's just not. Board's not the greatest in this spot. Now, both of these players are going to be heavy in the pocket pairs. I don't expect them to get a lot of folds, and that's why we don't really have a whole lot of just junk hands. This guy could have anything. So what do? I bet about half pot. I think that's probably justified given the strength of our hand, the strength of our draw. This guy folds, so I'm going to guess he's one of these hands. So we don't get to see what he has. Next guy calls. The question is, what does he call and what does he like just check raise with? I'd like to think he check raises some percentage. Say a third of the time he check raises it, 2/3 of the time he just checks with that set. We're going to say overcard. We're going to give him pocket pair is what he calls with, as well as the flush draw. I think that's what he's going to be calling with. This other guy calls a lot of hands. We're going to give him his pairs, his flush draws, open ender. We're going to give him the gut shots, which really isn't a whole lot of hands. I mean, that's 37.4% that he calls. So you can see he has a lot of junk. And maybe he calls with overcards too. But I think a reasonable player is going to be something like that, especially after a caller. All right, so 7 of diamonds hits. At this point, we're in position. So I think here we probably check. I mean, players have demonstrated that they've liked their hand. Obviously, when we think about what do we want to continue with, I think quads is obviously what we want to continue with. Our overpairs, I don't think we're continuing with everything. I think aces, kings, especially if we don't have the clubs, I think we continue with it. We're getting some value from our hands, and that's a lot. I mean, that's 55%. We're going to almost be betting like 100% here, and I don't think that's right against both the players. So you do have the turn. I'd probably bet the turn. Oops. Yeah, that. Oh, so 19%. Oh, that's a whole lot better. We bet the turn, but then the flop, we probably just check. So I don't think we're going to be betting all of them. Because I kind of think at this point, if they didn't check raise, they're good. They will be. I think it's just we're going to have some of our draws here. Definitely. And we could just scale it. Maybe that's going to be the easiest thing to do. Say 50% of all of our flushes, we bet 50%, we check. That's going to be the easiest. So there's going to be some checks, there's going to be some bets here. So that means checking those. I think if it checks again on the river, we could bet small and get some value from these overpairs. Definitely. Right. It's our checking range. And then the 9 of clubs comes out. Villain bets. Ouch. What does he bet on this board? At this point, I think it's a flush or full house, and probably more towards full house or quads. I think that's kind of what I'm going after. I think an overpair probably just like checks. I mean, he could have an overpair. I don't think it's any of this. So let's just color code these. It would be like 50-50. And of the flush draws, we're gonna be behind. This is a tough one. I don't. That's gonna be a tough one. If we think he's betting the overpair, if he doesn't, I think we just fold. Our flush connects. He makes a play like this. That's a real tight fold. Against this player, I think we have an easy fold if he leads into it. This guy's not so much. I think he's too loose. We also know that we saw his ranges. Ace, queen, nines, fives. It's entirely possible that he just connected with a full house here. And that means he was check calling with the overpair, which is entirely within his range. So here we need 30% equity to call. We have to win 30% of the time. Yeah, we would. With this, we would be winning 30% of the time if he's going to be betting that. I think the bet sizing, it's 2/3 or over 2/3. I guess right around 2/3. I think it's demonstrating he has a solid hand. I did call, so I'm not going to blame this. We do have a good hand. We've got a flush. We don't have the best flush, but we have a flush. I think we're behind ace x flush, king x flush, and then again full houses. He shows fives, so he actually bluffed here with the weak pairs. So if he's doing the weak pair, he's doing all of these other ones. I mean, board did come out scary, so that's interesting. So we did make the right call against him, and we just have to take a note for that, see how it is or how he played it. So because again, I think the pocket nines could play like this too. Not everyone could play these pocket fives. So let's see here. He overcall EP to big blind, ISO in S small blind with 5 clubs, 5 hearts. We are out of position. 4-way. Check call 50%. Check overcall. Oh no, he didn't overcall. Did he? Yep. This check called. Check call 50%. Check and then bet 66% on the river. So we had 7 of clubs, 3 of diamonds, 2 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 9 of clubs. Right. Got it. All right. So I won the hand. Made the right call. Do you think we could fold depending on the player? This would be a tough fold. I probably called thinking I'm not going to be surprised to see a hand like pocket nines or something like that. But at the same time, this is a 5NL game. And that's 5NL. You get a little bit crazier with some of the players. If you know a player can attack weakness, we check. We see that, and then we check the turn on a board that's really low. It's unlikely to connect with us. So, and this 9 is probably unlikely to connect with us either, so it opens ourselves up to a bluff. So we do have to account for that. All right, so hopefully you enjoy the sand. If you do, you can look tomorrow for another one.